Maybe you've experienced the problem that I encounter just about every single day. So I wake up early in the morning and I take up my Bible and I read the Bible. I spend some time in prayer. I have wonderful thoughts about God. I have a real sense of inner peace. But then I put my Bible down. I go and I get dressed. I step out into the world. And what happens is all of a sudden I am consumed, whether it's the noise of just music, whether it's all of the anxiety about my to-do list, whether it's just the distraction of cars flying by, billboards advertising new products, but the whole world around me makes me forgetful and distracted such that those good thoughts I had of God, they get buried minutes after I put my Bible down. Now, if you've had that experience, let me just ask you a question. Wouldn't it be wonderful if each day you stepped out into a world which didn't distract you from God, but actually filled your mind with thoughts about God? Wouldn't it be wonderful to step out and instead of increasingly as you go about your day forgetting God, that you were increasingly more aware of God and you were overwhelmed by His wisdom, His power, His grace, His glory, His goodness? It'd be great to step out into such a world. And if you have that sense that, man, I wish that was the world that I stepped into, I've got good news for you. Because actually it is the world that we step into. And this next hymn workout, what it's going to remind us is that God has created a world, which, as the psalmist says, declares His majesty, declares His glory. And what we need is eyes to see if we can actually learn to read the creation around us. When we put our Bible down, we're going to actually have another book to pick up, namely the book of creation. And it's going to confirm and it's going to deepen a lot of the thoughts that we've had from our Bible. And we're going to be seeing God in creation just as we see Him through the word that He's given us in the Scriptures. Now, let me read the first three stanzas of this hymn. And I'll be honest, as you hear these three stanzas, you're going to be thinking, oh, they all say the same thing. But they don't. Actually, pay attention to the first line of each stanza. Each stanza is going to tell us something really interesting and different. We sing the almighty power of God, who bade the mountains rise, who spread the flowing seas abroad and built the lofty skies. We sing the wisdom that ordained the sun to rule by day. The moon shines full at His command, and all the stars obey. We sing the goodness of the Lord, who fills the earth with food, who formed the creatures by a word and then pronounced them good. Now you hear that and you're thinking, okay, it's just saying God created everything and it's marvelous. No, actually, each stanza is highlighting a particular attribute of God. Let me just read the first line of each stanza. First stanza. We sing the almighty power of God. So first of all, as we step out into this world, what we should recognize is that the only reason that this universe has come into existence is because something has brought it into existence. An almighty power. And so the whole of creation is preaching to us the presence, the glory of the power of God. But that's not all that it tells us. First line of the second stanza, we sing the wisdom that ordained the sun to rule by day. As we look out into creation, yes, we see the power of God. We equally should recognize the wisdom of God, that God has put things into place with order, with beauty, with elegance, such that scientists talk about there being rules, they talk about there being laws that govern the universe. First line of the third stanza, we sing the goodness of the Lord. That another attribute, we see the power, we see the wisdom, and then we see the goodness, that this world is filled with things that bring joy and delight and meaning and fulfillment to ourselves and to other creatures. And so as we step out into this world, rather than somehow forgetting about God, what we should be doing is looking around us and realizing that God has left His fingerprints all over. What can you look at in His creation and not see power, wisdom, and goodness put on display? Now, once you see this, the next two stanzas are really important because they're going to tell us that we actually have the capacity, but we have to remember this ability to legibly read God's glory, not just into the big sweep of creation, but into the particularity of what we see within this world. Let me read these stanzas. Lord, how your wonders are displayed, where'er we turn our eyes. Whether we view the ground we tread or gaze upon the skies, there's not a plant nor flower below, but makes your glories known. And clouds arise and tempests blow by order from thy throne. Now, just listen to this. The hymn writer says God's wonders, they're on display whether we view the ground we tread or we gaze upon the sky. In fact, he goes so far as to say there's not a plant or flower below, but makes your glories known. Next time you're walking, someplace and you see a little daisy in the grass, pick it up. Look at it. Recognize that single little flower, it reveals something of the ineffable glory of God. And so if you want a reminder in the midst of your day of who God is and just how magnificent he is, even if you don't have your Bible with you, all you have to do is pluck a leaf off a branch, study it, look at it, and think of the power, the wisdom, the glory that has gone into creating the particularity of that single leaf, that single blade of grass, that single cloud that hovers above your head. The next stanza of this hymn, it says, creation, vast as it may be, is subject to thy will. There's not a place where we can flee, but God is with us still. Isn't this the good news? That again, we don't have to leave God when we leave our Bible at home. But wherever we're going about our day, we're surrounded with the echo, with the signs of his glory, of his presence. In heaven he shines with beams of love, with wrath and hell beneath. 'Tis on his earth I stand or move, and 'tis his air I breathe. This reminder that as we're breathing in oxygen, that should remind us of him, because who does it belong to? If you reach into somebody's refrigerator and you pull out their milk and you pour it into your bowl and eat some cereal, you're thinking while you're pouring that milk, this is actually my friend's milk. I don't own this milk. He's letting me borrow this milk. Every time we inhale, we ought to be thinking that this air does not belong to me. It belongs to God. This earth I'm standing on. If you step into somebody else's front yard, you're in their territory. We ought to step out into this world and be reminded that this belongs to God. It's not ours. We're standing on his earth. And whether we were in heaven or hell or on earth, there's no place we can go that's not revealing something of him. His hand is my perpetual guard. He guides me with his eye. Why should I then forget the Lord, who is forever nigh, who is forever near? Remember that problem we started with, that problem of forgetting about God because we put our Bible down and we step out into the world? It doesn't have to be a problem, because the truth is we can read God's presence into everything in the creation. And as we go about our day, we shouldn't be forgetful. We should be mindful, because we should see around us all kinds of tokens and signs and intimations that there is a living God who's powerful, who is wise, who is good, who is loving, who makes provision for us, who gives us the gift of life, who sustains us and provides for us. And so, friends, think about this hymn. But don't just think about this hymn. Let your hymn workout be to go out into the world, pick up a couple of leaves, look at a flower, look up to the clouds, and rather than the billboards reminding you of things you need to purchase, be reminded of the glory and the majesty of the God who has brought you into existence, for whom we live, we move, and we have our being.